Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with the post-Major 2 reverse sweep, and we have a lot to talk about. But before we get into it, the LAG post-champs press conference just dropped, so we want to watch a little bit of it with you right now.
You guys just pulled up one of the craziest losers run brackets we've ever seen, and one of the greatest upsets, I personally think, in Call of Duty history. How does it feel?
My chest hurts, bro. I don't know. I actually don't know. Like, I'm my mom. I don't know. I actually like have literally like text message proof of me like calling that we were gonna win this shit. I don't know if I'm delusional or what, but like, I had a feeling, bro. I had a feeling. I'm not even kidding.
I mean, I just think that we're just blessed to be in this like situation and opportunity. Obviously, it sucked with Pierce being sick, and I think we came out here with we're just gonna do it for Pierce. We're gonna play with like we have nothing to lose mentality. I think it definitely showed every map, every situation. I think we just showed that we had fun the whole series. Even if we lost the map, we were like, we're just gonna go on to the next. Whatever happens, happens mentality. And I think like Austin said in like the interview that we actually put so much time in. We're very like hard workers. We're very critical on each other. And we just wanted to win so bad, obviously for Pierce and as a team and for each other, like giving that call to Chris after like the OpTic match and then Pierce being sick, he knew he had another opportunity to write like a name for himself, and I think as an MVP he showed it this weekend.
Guys, if you want to watch the rest of the video, click the link in the description. And Dexerto was also doing a billion interviews throughout the entire weekend, so check the channel out and you will see some fantastic interviews. But Chris, look, we have a lot to talk about. I want to hear what you want to start it off with, because you were watching damn near every single day for like 14 hours, a little bit more than me. So what do you want to start off with?
I was definitely putting in that work every day.
Sitting there watching, huh?
Shows. I was sitting there watching quite literally.
That was the point,
It's funny
yeah.
how everything comes full circle. But anyways, before we actually get into the major tournament, I wanted to throw some challengers love out there. So as you know, Rokkr were gracious enough to throw a Challenger Open tournament, which had some serious implications for the Challenger teams participating. As you guys know, later in the season, there's going to be a Pro-Am tournament in which the pro teams are playing against the top 4 amateur teams that just recently qualified. And those 4 teams that actually went out there and qualified this weekend were Toronto Academy North America, Toronto Academy Europe, and what was the other one? M7, I believe. They were another European team.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 4th team, which was the real surpriser, right, was I forget what they're called, Strike X, which was actually, with some very familiar names who were a part of the league. This is the wild one. Fire 40, my boy, my son, Silly, Gunsy, and Ramby Bambi. And so I named 4 teams. And if you're in tune with the Challenger scene, you'll know one big team is missing from that qualifying.
What team, Chris? Tell them.
Group.
Let them know. Let them know.
Nation. Texas
Who's on
Nation
Texas Nation?
Hold on. Texas Nation, which is Jordan General, Havoc, Kismet, and aBeZy were the favorites to win the whole thing. They were currently on a 7-peat or 8-peat of Challenger tournaments coming into the tournament, and they ended up getting upset by Fire 40, Strike X, and Co. And I think that was the big surprise of the weekend. As you guys know, if you guys are avid reverse sweep watchers, which I hope all of you guys are, shout out to you guys. We were calling out Havoc, for not taking the New York Subliner offer. As we all know, he declined in favor of sticking with his Challenger team, which was on a streak online, and I guess betting on that team having more success and all that stuff. But with the recent failure to qualify for the Pro-Am, which is arguably one of the most important tournaments for, amateur Call of Duty recognition, you got to think he's going to be regretting his decision.
He should have been regretting it day one. Day one. I mean, look at what happened with Spart, right? Like Spart comes in, LAG to me before Major 2 and during the qualifiers, they're on the same level with NYSL. I would even argue NYSL with Paul was probably better than LAG performing online in the qualifiers. So to me, I mean, like, look at what Spart, the impact he had on a roster, which to me is worse than NYSL. There's no telling the impact Havoc could have had on that NYSL roster. Obviously having Paul, fresh face, new look, 2-person change, which would have been huge. To me, absolutely missed opportunity. And now, they had that 8 streak online, but they don't even get to participate in the Pro-Am which is like the whole reason to stick with that Texas Nation squad was to get like full representation with, oh, this Pro-Am team is so good. They can come in and, this Texas Nation team is so good. They can come into the Pro-Am and beat some pro teams. So now that doesn't happen. They get upset. And a big thing for me from the challengers was the EU representation. I mean, 8 or 10, or no, was it 8? Oh, no, because
It was
Toronto
11.
Ultra has,
I thought it was 11
10.
out of this.
It was 10 because aBeZy didn't qualify. He would have been the 11th. So it was
okay,
10 EU players out of the 16 that qualified for the Pro-Am were all European. So shout out to them. They're coming crazy in challengers this year, and now they're going to get to represent on the big stage against the pro teams.
Yeah, so I just want to touch on that aspect of the challenger scene a little bit, but I didn't want to stick around on it too long because I know for Colt Havoc, it probably stings a little bit, so I don't want to rub some salt in the wound. But I definitely want to give a shout out to some of the standout performers of the entire tournament. Obviously, the winners, Toronto Academy North America, which is a team of Scrappy, Mohawk, Hixie, and their fourth is, I'm trying to remember his name. I'm terrible with this. Does anyone?
It's Vickle, isn't it?
Vickle,
Yeah,
Vickle.
Vickle.
Sorry. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but
Vickle, whatever.
Vineyard.
Super
Cool.
happy for those guys. You'll know Mohawk was on the challengers roster with Spart, who just recently made his appearance with Los Angeles Guerrillas and won the entire tournament last year, winning the challenger final from Cold War. So very impressive stuff out of Mohawk. Amazing run by those guys. And another shout out is to my personal friend Fire 40. A lot of people put a lot of dirt on his name, right? Not playing well in the pro league, being on a terrible roster. And I think if anything to take away from this weekend, not only for challengers but for the entire pro league, is I think a lot of people really forget how great some of these players are when they fail to perform in unfavorable situations, because you even saw it with Spart, who got a second chance on the second iteration of his LA Guerrillas team and ended up being the MVP and winning the tournament. You saw it with Classic, who wasn't in the league, right? Played for the Seattle
played pretty
Surge,
well.
and although they lost, he played really good, bar one map. And then you see it with just tons of other players who are making resurgences, whether it's in challengers and the pro scene. So I wanted to give a big shout out to the challenger scene. I hope there's expansion soon. There's more eyes on the scene, because there's a lot of talent down there, man. Seriously.
on the opposite side of that, sorry, Pat, I didn't mean to cut you off. And
I was just saying, I was agreeing.
we can get into the actual tournament, but I think it's crazy to me. Like all those people deserve gas in those teams, but a team like OpTic or Texas Nation, whatever they're called, can go on an 8P online. Like, they are untouchable, and then go not even get top 4. Like, people thought they were going to win the whole thing, not even get top 4 to be in the Pro-Am. And a team of Fire 40, Silly, would you say, Gunsy,
Pickup team. They were a pickup squad.
they
30
literally
minutes
a
before the
pickup
tournament.
squad. So that was kind of a theme throughout the entire event. Getting into the actual matches, Pat, what is something that you want to touch on? Because I don't think anyone could have predicted this.
Yeah, I think the big one that we're all talking about is the OpTic upset early on, right?
Had them
Like,
boys first, son.
Seattle coming out 3-0ing them like it was nothing. You know what I mean? And we obviously have been kind of harping on Seattle's woes, being very inconsistent in their slang, obviously having some upset performances here and there, and then losing to some teams that we all thought they were better than.
You told them blow it up.
Hey, they they're
kidding,
still on
I'm
the
kidding.
radar. They're still on the radar. But look, they come in and they absolutely smoke OpTic. And OpTic being a team that, all of us had going back to the final, right? We all kind of had that FaZe OpTic matchup, and they come in day one and just get 3-0'd. And I think that was kind of for everybody the shock of this tournament, right? Like, this tournament is not going to be like the rest. And it obviously played out with the outcome, but yeah, I mean, that was surprising to me. I did not see that happening. I didn't think OpTic was going to come in and have the same dominance that they had at Major 1, but there was no way in hell I thought they would lose to Seattle and not lose in Winners 1. So what was your guys' main takeaways from that match? And I guess kind of what do we think about OpTic moving forward?
Chris, you could take that
First?
away.
Okay. Yeah. So, bro, I mean, at the end of the day, we know OpTic, they won the first major. They've looked really impressive in the online qualifiers. And at the end of the day, they come out here and they come out flat. But the one thing that you can't take away from them is how consistent they've been up until this point. And I think because this is I know Pat has some FaZe bias, and rightfully so. I mean, they're good. They're an amazing team. I would say they're the best team, the most consistent team over the years. But as Call of Duty's day to day, and at the end, you can't win them all. But you can't take away from the fact that OpTic obviously won the first major and they've been super consistent. I think their performance this weekend may have been a byproduct of the game. I know people obviously had some very fluke hard point spawns happening in their elimination match, which we'll get to later. But also I think they probably just got a little bit overconfident. I don't like the maps they picked in a lot of these series. I feel like they were kind of experimenting with their map pool a little bit too much online, and probably got them overconfident when it came to the actual series in terms of like what maps they let slip through on other teams. And I think they kind of underestimated the fact that like, certain teams were, pretty competitive on some of these maps, and they thought they'd, get away with just being the better team. And I think that's kind of where, it ended up biting them in the ass. But overall, as an OpTic team, I don't think you really take too much from it. I mean, you just go back to the drawing board and you try to come back stronger, because at the end of the day, they got to remember who they are. They're the Major 1 champions. They're disgusting. They got Shotzzy. And by the way, I think Shotzzy had an amazing tournament. Granted, they didn't place well. Bro, that guy was actually putting people on his back like a lot of the time.
It was MVP level.
MVP level. Like bro, I think if they would have gone to like the finals and kept the form, bro, Shotzzy's probably would have had like some of the single best performances I've ever seen out of a player. Like if he kept up that level of play, because holy fuck, he was doing people dirty. Like it was crazy.
Yeah, no, he was frying. And real quick, somebody that I wanted to bring up that, isn't keeping up the level of play. We got Doug Censor Martin missing out
You're an idiot.
on the reverse sweep. I don't know what Doug's been up to. Probably still in the casino. No telling. Might be down trying to fight back, get back to even. But hey, Doug, we miss you, and hopefully this is the last episode you miss. Or we're gonna have some problems, but go ahead.
We get your paycheck, Doug. It's split between us. Just know that. No, the one thing I wanted to say just about OpTic, not even in that Seattle series, but in general, I didn't even think they played bad. Like if you watch the series, Shotzzy was playing better, I thought, at this event than he was at the first one. I think iLLeY kind of underperformed, which we all kind of thought he would have. Yeah, I mean, he had the best final series of his career at Major 1, and that's a hard performance to repeat. But I think it's something to talk about, that it's just like the nature of the game. Like, yeah, I'm not trying to take away any team success at this major or whatnot, but it seems that almost any team can beat any team in a series. Some teams stack up better against others, but like, how many game 5s were there this event?
A lot.
Like, I don't have the numbers off the top, but I would assume that this was probably the most game 5s at an event in the CDL. Like at least it has to be close, because it seemed like every single series could have went the other way. LAG, the team that won, they were down 3-5 to Forida Mutineers game 5. So it's like, I think with the way the game is played and the spawns and all that stuff, it's any given Sunday.
The map pools too. I mean, like,
and the map pools, yes, and how control is played, which is such a big swing map in my opinion. So I don't even think OpTic played bad. Like, I personally still have them as not the best team. I would say second best because of their placing, but it's just so hard to like really gauge them. Not even just them, like any other team in this game. No one thought that we would get the placings that we got. Obviously, OpTic would have loved to do better, but I don't think that they'll have any issue like bouncing back moving forward. No, go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I fully agree with you. I don't think they played bad, like by any means individually, and even on a team level. I think they obviously had iLLeY underperforming, which we kind of talked about. But to me, it was kind of more to what Chris was saying. Was like, I think they got greedy with their maps, right? Like there were
some questionable ones.
Yeah, like they're giving teams maps that teams are really happy about, especially when it's like OpTic. We know how dominant OpTic is. Like their map records set apart more than any other teams, like where their good maps and bad maps fall. And I think them experimenting and exploring their map pool in the qualifiers kind of fucked them here, because to me, they kind of carried that into this, like still playing the maps that weren't their bread and butters.
Yeah.
and I think that happened in the kind of the Surge series, but also the Mutineers series. And you know, they had some close series overall. They 3-2 with Thieves in that reverse sweep.
Happened in their Thieves series. The Bokage.
Yeah.
Bokage was a map they don't play. Granted, it was a close ass map. They don't play the map. Why is it in the series? They had their picks of other series.
And why square up on Bokage hardpoint against Surge? It's the same thing. Like, they would have beat Surge on any other hardpoint any day of the week. Why square up against like a team like Surge's best map, if not one of their best maps, is Bokage hardpoint? They could just avoid that and play something else. So
definitely
cockiness, I think.
But also I wanted to say the whole nature of the nature of the beast is what we'll call it. It reflects in our tier list. It reflects in a lot of people's pick'ems, right? Like, it's so hard to gauge where teams will place at tournaments. And like, bro, we had Forida Mutineers at D tier, right? And although I don't think they're rightfully so at that point in time, right? But they come out and they have, you know, some of the best performances the teams had in a long time. We'll get to them later, but I think that's just, you know, the nature of the beast. Like I said, it's hard to gauge where teams are going to fall. It's hard to gauge how well a team's going to perform at the major. And at the end of the day, all we can do is make those assumptions and hope so. But the one thing I will say is this is where the whole best team in the game, what is it called, argument comes up, right? I know the fans right now, they don't like FaZe because they're clearly OpTic's rivals and no one wants to see OpTic be surpassed, right? But at the end of the day, this is something you got to tip FaZe. Granted, they didn't win the major. They didn't win the last one. The fact that they've been consistently in the finals for years without falter, like, you know, they maybe missed out on finals here or there, very rarely, is something that you got to tip. They are clearly the best team in Call of Duty in terms of consistency and even then just the amount of success they've had as a core team. So you can't shit on them for it. Sorry, OpTic fans. Say whatever you want.
Chris going for the net. Hey, I'm just saying, I can't co-sign what Chris is saying.
FaZe the best team in Call of Duty.
I fully co-sign it.
But
they are.
That doesn't mean they're going to be the best team in Vanguard. That doesn't mean that somebody can't surpass them. But in Call of Duty right now, they are the best team in terms of their consistency.
Even right now in Vanguard, I think they're the best team. They're the only team to get to back-to-back grand finals. Their average placement is second. They got the most points in the CDL. They got the most prize money earned. Like, every metric that you could look at to gauge a team, they're number one in. Yeah, they didn't win this event. They didn't win the last one. But hey, OpTic didn't repeat. Guerrillas got 12th last major. So I think from a consistent level, they are the best team in Vanguard. No, they didn't win, but they'll put it together. But overall, they're still the best team.
So I have a question for both of you. Just kind of touching on the point that you had, Chris, and just listening to you guys, especially with how the placings completely flopped almost, barring FaZe being in the finals both times. In the past, right, in Call of Duty titles, teams would do what Rambo and OpTic did, right? You would want to make your map pool as big as you possibly could because there's multiple maps. So you want to be able to, no matter what team you're going up against, you're always going to have your strong maps, right? With Vanguard and how this game is right now, do you think that that's almost worse because of the lack of maps where you'd be better off to just become really strong on like 2 or 3 maps? I mean, there's only 2 maps to control, but like, you know what I mean? And the hard points in the SNDs, than trying to just get above average or good at every single one. Because I feel like that's what OpTic did, and they kind of fell off a little bit on the maps they were dominant on. I mean, that could be wrong.
That's necessarily true that they fell off on the maps they were dominant on. I just think they didn't play very many of them because if you're looking at it from like the other team's perspective, they were probably either getting rid of their one fucking terrible maps or they were just getting rid of OpTic's best maps. And then OpTic was left with the choices of like, oh, do we play this map that we're average at or this map? And I don't think OpTic was looking at like, they weren't respecting other teams in terms of their map pools. Mm-hmm. They were kind of just being like, what would we rather play rather than like, wow, this team is actually pretty damn good at this map. Let's get rid of it or let's not opt to not play it. Instead, they were kind of just like more so focusing on their own games and not really showing respect to other teams. And I think that's something that people can't afford to do on this game, man. Anyone can win. We talked about it. The game, say what you want. It's it's probably the least skillful COD in terms of just the game mechanics, right? There's a lot of little RNG bullshit, people
dies
dying
so
a bullet.
fast.
I mean, like you can see some players that are absolutely talented and were really hard to kill in other games, a lot easier to kill in other games. Like for example, aBeZy. Like aBeZy has been pretty up and down, but in Cold War, which had a higher skill gap, higher time to kill, he was pretty hard to kill. In this game, he dies to anyone. Point is, you got to start showing respect to the other teams, because this is the most competitive league we've had in a while, just by the rosters. If you look at the rosters, like these are some of the better rosters we've had, at least on paper. And what? Oh, sorry, I just heard that. That hurt my ears. What the hell was that?
It's
Anyways.
Doug's ghost, the ghost of Doug.
Anyways, so I think people just got to start showing more respect to their opponents, because it's a very competitive league, and I think OpTic's gonna learn that the hard way this tournament.
I agree. I also want to say, like, something that, kind of gets looked over when we talk about teams exploring their map pool is they kind of show their whole arsenal, right? Like, teams got to kind of see, like, all right, OpTic's playing this. They're not that good on it, right? They're winning it, but they're really not that good at it. And they can get, strategize against that and game plan for that. And OpTic kind of showed everything, right? They, in qualifier 2, they were willing to play every single map, and they were fine with that. And I think that kind of exposed some weak points, too, that other teams can kind of like, want to take advantage of. And then, yeah, they weren't respecting the fact that these other teams are good, and, allowing other teams to get their best map in a veto process is the dumbest thing you can do. If you have the veto advantage, which is the one thing I was harping on Cap for way back when they played Toronto, like, if you have the advantage in the vetoes, take the advantage. Don't allow a map to get in that the other team would have picked if they had the opportunity to do it. And I think,
especially when their map pool is probably not as big as yours.
Yeah, exactly. OpTic has probably the biggest map pool regardless. Even if they shave off some of the maps that they were exploring, like, it's still, they had one of the bigger map pools. And I think they're gonna look back at that and regret that, and probably come better for qualifier 2 and Major 3. And also, I mean, exploring your map pool, that usually helps the most at champs. So even if you're exploring as the year goes on, like, you kind of are saving that and constantly doing that for later down the year. You don't got to immediately do it at the next major, because you don't really have the sample size to say, hey, yeah, we're 100% sure on this fact. But
especially
Chris,
when everyone's watching you, because they were the champs. Like, everyone's trying to copy and paste your playstyle anyways. I think I think you're right on that. I do.
And Chris, you said you wanted to get into Florida later. I want to get into them now. This pisses me off because, listen, we got Tom Ryan, Ogre 2. Yeah, but hey, Ogre 2 obviously watches the reverse sweep. Shout out to you for watching. Hope you enjoy the content. But he was harping on us for saying that Florida was D tier. And yeah, I disagree. I think at the time, I think they were, and it was arguably, you could say maybe top of C or bottom of C. But look, this team has 3 ARs. Player-wise, they have 3 ARs. And at this major, guess what maps they played? Gavutu, literally nonstop. Every series they played
Gavutu's
had Gavutu hardpoint. But that wasn't their pick, or it was once or twice. But which, by the way, we'll get into that. Other teams picking Florida's Gavutu pick. But anyway, every series had Gavutu map 1 and Gavutu control map 3. They went 3-1 in each mode. And guess what? They're running 4 fucking automatons. 4. And we were harping on him for running 3 and having 3 AR players. And Ogre 2 was like, well, I learned from the reverse sweep that we have 3 ARs. And it's like,
he found out this weekend
now.
he did. He found out this weekend that he did.
I think that was honestly such a big thing for their success, was being able to be comfortable finally. I think some of these other maps take them out of their element, and they're not able to be as comfortable. When they're able to play Gavutu and all of those AR players get to just run autos, and we even saw Vivid pulling out a 4th. Granted, they played a lot better. We'll give them their credit there. But the fact that, they were able to get those maps in series and win them and keep winning them throughout the weekend, and teams didn't react. Like, if I'm playing your team and I see on Friday and Saturday you were frying on Gavutu and winning it and beating good teams, why the hell am I gonna pick it? Like, teams ended up picking map 1 Gavutu hardpoint against Florida.
This is map vetoes.
Yeah, and teams are allowing that to happen. And I forget which team. Well, it's actually Florida too in the qualifiers. We were talking about it. When Florida was getting Bocage in the qualifiers, they were winning a lot of those series. And it was the same thing. Like, this event, you obviously saw they were hot on Gavutu. Why keep allowing that to happen? And I think, if they don't have a repeat where that their perfect map gets picked from the other team, it's going to be the same case. Like, when I think back, it was my EG team in World War II. People let us play St. Marie at that Seattle event, even though we were hot on it, right? That's the only reason we got second. We literally got our St. Marie hardpoint pick every single series. If we didn't, there's probably no way we make that finals run.
At champs, people let you play Gibraltar.
Same thing, yeah. They don't pick up on the fact that a team is hot on the map. Because if you're hot on it, if you're the team, you're obviously going to keep playing it.
Like you see a map,
you want to run it back until you lose it.
If you see a map in a series, especially at a tournament, right, where like it's like most people when they go into tournaments, they have a plan. But if once they like start doing something and they're like really comfortable on something where it just keeps getting through, they keep winning it. You can almost bet they want to play that map. Like they're just hot on it.
Chris, we went into World War II champs thinking we were the shit on Arden's Forest. It was our second best map. We got smoked by like Spacely's team. We were getting smoked in the warm-up scrims, chalked it, played Gibraltar the whole rest of the time because we saw we were winning that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it was the same thing for Florida. Like they saw Gavutu and they just kept stringing it along and teams allowed them to play it over and over. And I think that really added to a lot of their success this event. And I want to see how that kind of plays out when they go back for the qualifiers because I think they were really comfortable in that running a bunch of AR roles.
The one person on Florida that I want to give a shout out to is Skyz. Skyz is, we've all known Skyz is a really talented player, but I think he propelled them to winning a lot of series and a lot of maps that maybe people didn't think he should have. He started off hot versus OpTic. He was shredding, and I think he's not their X factor, but I think he's probably their best player. Just consistently is performing. He can do it with the sub, as you see on Bokic, which I've been said Caesar can definitely run a sub if he needed to. I don't know why obviously he doesn't. But the AR, he does it with the AR. I think Skyz, is just a very, very talented player, and I'm glad he played well. I'm glad he was able to propel his team to pushing newer heights. And I don't have any bad, thing to say about Florida. I keep it real. I'd like the guys on Florida. I want them to succeed. But at the end of the day, we'll see how they manage to stay consistent. Because even for a team like LAG, right, that just won the tournament, I'm not going to sit here and say they're an S-tier team now. The problem is, the reason why we rate certain teams so much higher is because of their consistency factor, right? Mm-hmm. You got to be able to do that multiple times. And for all we know, we can go to the next tournament or the next qualifier, and teams are looking back and playing the same old. These teams, like, they gotta start being a lot more consistent. They gotta start playing better, because this inconsistency is just not going to fly in a super competitive league if they want to be, tournament champions.
Speaking of LAG, they won 10 S&Ds in a row from losers one.
The record,
like
that at a tournament.
That will never occur again. They won 3 game 5s in a row. Clutched every S&D, won both S&Ds in the 2 series before that versus Ravens and Ultra. Like, that is impossible to replicate. Like, we will never see that again. I've never seen it in 12 years of Call of Duty. We'll never see it again. That is,
you know what that reminds you of, or reminds me of? Do you remember in I think it was the first event in Infinite Warfare, with your Cloud9 team? You guys won so many games. You got second that event, right? Or was it the second one? You know what I'm talking about?
Second to Rise, yeah.
It was the first one, and you guys rattled off a ton of game 5
3 or 4
wins.
in a row, yeah.
Obviously,
it's what Ultra did last event.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that's what makes it so tough. To what Chris was saying is, like, you can't. It sounds so wrong not having a team that just won be like in the S tier, but at the same time, if you're getting by winning game 5s, you just have luck on your side. Like, not taking anything away from LAG, they obviously had huge obstacles with Gunless not being able to play, Spart coming from challengers, and then them just having a miracle run, realistically.
I mean, Austin even said it in his interview. Like, I don't think we can be, shamed for throwing out that miracle term. Austin literally went, "I can't believe we pulled off this miracle."
Yeah. I think everyone knows, and that's the hard part, and why you give so much credit to a team like FaZe, because at the end of the day, with how Vanguard is being played, it is very hit or miss majority of the time. We're like talking about Florida. We said that they're super inconsistent. They could beat any team. They could beat the best team one day, lose to the worst team the next day. And they had a lot of close-ass series, especially the one versus OpTic, where that Vanguard spawn didn't happen. Who knows? Maybe it's a whole different ballgame. That goes to a game 5. LAG had a couple game 5s. There was a couple plays, a couple spawns. It's just the inconsistencies of the games and the teams, I guess, realistically, which make it so hard to actually show how good you are, which is why I think Atlanta FaZe is as dominant as they are. Because yeah, they haven't won yet, but they made it to the finals back to back.
Yeah,
you know, it's like every other team, it was completely different. You see London, they got third last event. That's another team who underperformed heavily. They got what, 7th, I believe. They got upset by Florida, beat a Paris team, got bodied by LAG. Toronto, bodied. OpTic didn't really get bodied, but underperformed a lot. And so it's like, you have to give respect to FaZe, even though they got the brakes beat off them, in my opinion, in the finals. But it's like, LAG was hot. It's just simple as that. And
yeah,
I think it's crazy that Spart and Classic, because Classic had to fill in for Seattle, but they were on the same team, and they ended up playing each other for top 4 in the actual CDL, not the Challengers event. And Spart goes on, wins MVP. They get a win. It's like, you couldn't write a script any better than that. But it's also mind blowing to me. Like, I don't know if I can ever. I don't know if I can predict the next event with what's going to happen. Besides FaZe being in the finals.
With all
they
these
also had one scrim, one S&D scrim, and won 10 in a row.
That's what I'm
that is an anomaly. Saying. That will never happen. And if that didn't happen this tournament, they don't win the tournament.
Bro, they might get 12th.
Yeah,
they got 3-0 day one. Like, and then that shit happened, and they just got hot.
Yeah, it's actually nuts.
Doesn't that cause some concern though? Sorry, Chris. I just want your opinion.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
Like, you've heard the term, this game's a coin flip. It's like, I know a team, something could just click, man, or you can get luck on your side. But how does that happen? A team that got bodied in the first day, they had one S&D scrim, they had a substitute. Like, how on? Like, no. I can't even actually articulate what I'm thinking. Like, how the hell did they win?
Powers that be, bro. The powers that be.
I mean, honestly, it just reminded me of Rokkr's reverse sweep, super mega duper reverse legendary reverse sweep versus Ultra. Shit that shouldn't happen just happened.
That was one series, Chris. That was just one series.
That's what I'm saying. They fought got losers round 1.
Yeah, I mean,
like, how?
I don't know. It was impressive to say the least. I do want to give credit where credit is due to the Major 2 MVP, Spart. Rightfully deserved. I was saying it. He's the best. He was the best player on the team. He might not have played the best in the finals, but he did his job, had some clutch kills, etc. But he was the best. He was actually legitimately the best player on the team throughout the entire tournament bar finals. He had probably the best stats.
Him and Asim. I think Asim played incredible.
Played, I mean, they all had their moments.
They all had their moments.
You have to if you're going to win.
He probably had the best stats out of the team. The majority of series coming into a team last fucking second. And it was a fucking it was impressive to say the least. His S&D was phenomenal. I think he's a reason why they were able to win a lot of those. I think their entire team stepped it up, but in S&D, he's a fucking specialist in that. He was dropping double digits, getting 2-piece, getting entries, etc. Like, it was his fucking day job. And I want to show
it is his day job. It
is now. But speaking of his job,
which, I want to bring this up.
Look at Pat trying to steal. Look at Pat.
Yeah, don't steal that real quick.
What am I telling?
So
speaking about his job,
Major 2 MVP,
good, right?
Major 2 MVP. What happens? What is next for him? Because if I'm LAG, I just won the tournament. Granted, I don't think they're going to make a run like that again. I don't even think they're going to win another tournament unless this team drastically changed and this 10-0 S&D spree wasn't, just a crazy anomaly. Because, I mean, I do think they're good and I love the guys, but I don't know if this is going to be replicated. I think they would be delusional if they said it was going to be replicated.
You know what I think this is?
Yeah.
Or sorry, Chris, you can finish it. Do you have it?
I wanted to say, what happens with him? Do they keep him? I think they need to. If they don't, not only are they just not, they're going to be hated as an organization. They will be
from a PR standpoint.
Yeah, from a PR standpoint, they have to keep him. From a performance standpoint, he was the best player on the team. They have to keep him.
So here's the thing. They have to. You won. And I think he deserves to be on the starting roster. But the issue is it was a Cinderella story. Right. And I think that this is something that we could talk about not only with LAG, but it also just shows the difference of how a team plays when you don't have the pressure. Right. LAG going into this, Spart going into this. It's it's like, damn, Gunless is out. They have a sub. No one's expecting to do well. But even from inside the team, they're not expecting much. You know, they're not like they're trying to grind and get some reps in, but they're not expecting Spart to play like how Gunless plays. You know what I mean? He was able to play free. The team was able to play free, and it just worked. Yeah,
It was
some
make the
luck
best
went
of
their
it.
way compared to a team. I'll use LAT for an example, right? Where going into this event, they have so much pressure on themselves individually and as a team, right? You could see the difference where LAG genuinely they didn't have anything to lose. They didn't have anything to lose. So while Spart deserves a chance, and I think it sucks for Gunless, they have to do it. But at the same time, you have to wonder if they just won't go to, going back to being an average team when there is more pressure on for not only Spart to perform, but the rest of the team, like to be a consistent contender. It's just a tough spot.
My opinion is they have to do it. They have to keep him. But honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if they come out and get 12th or top 8, right? Like, I just feel like they're not going to be able to replicate this performance. There's a very low chance they're in the grand final next event. I think Spart is a beast. To be honest with you, I think the more likely outcome is other teams are interested in Spart, and I think that is kind of an avenue for the Guerrillas where, like, if other teams come knocking, they know the situation. Do they kind of facilitate a transfer if there is a possibility for one, and then just go back to Gunless? Because to me, I mean,
It's
think
a
Spart played
lose-lose.
well. Yeah, but I think Spart played well. But like, can you argue that they're going to be any better than they were with Gunless moving forward? Like, you would say at this event, like, yeah, Spart was an MVP. He, was the X factor for this event. But honestly, after this event, they could just go back to the online games, be mediocre, 2-3 in the qualifiers, maybe get a winner spot at a major, get top 8, top 6. Like,
We
me,
know
it's
Slasher
Same
though.
thing, the same
look,
thing
we-
can happen if they keep Gunless. We know how mediocre
could've
at
won the
times
event.
they were.
I think
with
they'll be
Gunless.
equal either
They
way. I
could
think
have won
they'll
the
be equal
event the
either way.
same way with Gunless, which makes it so tough because you got to win. You're soaking it in. But we all know Slasher. Like I was saying, like he's smart. He knows, even though on social media he'd be like, "Oh, I'm the best S tier."
He's laughing his ass off
Yeah,
right now
yeah.
that they won.
Yeah, I believed it the whole time. He knows that was a miracle run. It's just how it is. Even though it was very well deserved, it's just how it is. So I do think that they are going to think about it because you don't want to let Spart go to another team, but you can't be an
potentially make
organization
another
that's
team
to
better.
hold him. Yeah, it could potentially help another team, but also you have to think, were you just lucky? And if you run this back with the same team, like you said, Pat, what if we get a 7th, 8th placing, or even worse, top 12? So it's definitely something I have to think about. But I think they have to, at the very minimum, give it another go.
Yeah.
Maybe they keep Gunless on the bench for a major, like for the next qualifiers in the major. But there's also a huge break. It's like, so then do you not let Gunless go? But you can't let Gunless go because if you let Gunless go and then you go to the major with Spart and shit the sheets, then what?
Two things.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a break, but Pierce was also tweeting like, he's looking to his condition and there's possible surgery, right? That was in his tweet.
Yeah.
Like,
I think he has to have it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a potential surgery. So we don't know like how long that recovery process is going to be anyway. So maybe they keep him and by the time he's better, they've already kind of seen where they are with Spart.
Yeah, maybe had some qualifier matches under their belt, depending on how long it takes for him to. That makes sense.
But for me, like if there's an opportunity to, this is a business after all, right? If there's an opportunity to move him and there's an interested buyer, right? Like, and Gunless is back and ready. Like, do you kind of like, do you double down on the fact that, everyone kind of thinks, and they should also think internally that this is kind of a lucky Cinderella story win that probably won't be, that won't be repeated. So why not deal him like, when
get some cash for him, while stock is.
He's hot.
Yeah.
He's hot right now. Like he's a hot commodity. So to me, I mean, that's kind of how I was kind of thinking about it because honestly, Pierce, Spart, like both very good players, very talented. Team wise, I don't think it's going to matter, right? I think they're pretty much in the same boat. But I think Spart deserves a starting spot. I think that's the thing that proved this weekend was even if it's not LAG, Spart deserved that he should be a starter on any team in the league right now.
Yeah.
Which brings up the other question.
Oh,
well, I was going to say, where could he fit in? because he's a
There's a couple
flex.
teams.
He's a flex, which is tricky because a lot of teams are kind of wanting subs, or we would think they're wanting subs because that's their weak link. But could there be some situations where some flexes move to main, LAT, or
LAT
what?
would be one. I
Kenny
think
on main?
Minnesota could be another. The issue is, before going into it, and I'm not trying to switch to the subject too much, but most of the maps he was running that Volkswagen. I don't know how to pronounce it.
It's just the vote. We're gonna go with the vote.
The Volkswagen. I heard that it was already being considered, or it's considered to be GA'd. Teams.
You've seen that before.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying is he a one trick by any means, because I think he played, solid in general, even when he wasn't running the Volk. But that's also something you have to think about as well. He was the only one who did it. He definitely had reps in it. He told Seam before the event, like, yo, I got the secret weapon, bro. Trust. Very reminiscent of the classic Rampart vibes in Black Ops 4 with LG. But so that's just something you have to think about. There's definitely a lot of teams that I think Spart could help. The issue is, though, like we said, is LAG doesn't want to help another team like be better than them.
But I think Spart earned that kind of that.
Oh,
right,
he did,
right?
but it's
like,
a business at the end of the day, Pat.
Yeah, but he just won them a championship. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of think about like sports teams. Like teams, they seem to do more for the teams that bring them, or the players that bring them championships.
Sometimes, but he's still on a rookie deal. You know what I mean? They don't care. They don't go.
Yeah, but you don't fuck over players who brought you championships. That's like the one no you don't do in sports, right?
Some orgs have done it though. Some orgs have done it.
But think about their reputation after the fact. Like, this is still a new
not one
thing.
of those orgs. From
that's what I was saying. Like, this is a new thing.
They do right by their
CDL wise. Like, they're still year 3. Like, you don't want to set that precedent, right? Like, he came in, filled in, blew expectations.
Did his job.
Was not going to start otherwise. Won MVP, won them a chip, Cinderella story or not. So I think if that opportunity comes, I don't think they can be thinking we don't want to make another team better. I think it's we either put them on the starting roster and cement that for the whole year, or we deal them somewhere else. It's one of the two. So I think I was gonna say I think he individually is in a good position regardless.
Yeah, he'll be fine no matter if he's on LAG, depending on how long Gunless is out.
Yo, hold on, Ian. I don't want to interrupt you, but I just thought of it. I got to. And I know you're a Philly fan.
What?
It's kind of reminiscent of the Eagles, right? Carson Wentz gets hurt. Nick Foles comes in, wins a Super Bowl.
Hey, that's why
they bring
Carson Wentz back, bro, for that. He Nick Foles, baby, just took him to a chip.
Itself, bro.
But that is something like if this event taught me anything, or not me, but all the other teams in the league, it just goes to show you that players sometimes, most times actually, all they need is a change in environment.
Blow it up, right? Baby. This one was incidental.
Like even one player. Like, I know NYSL underperformed. I still think that they're trending upwards. But like swapping Paul X, I know Spart had to fill in for Gunless, but it seemed like everyone was playing a lot better. And I don't know if that was just because it was like a clean slate. There's no pressure. I don't know if maybe the play style from Spart to Gunless helped, but other teams need to make a change. You can't just sit on the same floor, because even if you make one, it can make all the difference to at least jumpstarting your success.
One of those teams that needs to make the change is Rokkr. We've said this too many times. We were saying it last year until they had their crazy run where they won the tournament and bought themselves some time for the inevitable. They need to make some changes. Their superstars from last year, Standy, doesn't look as good as he was in Cold War.
All 4 of them,
but
all 4
all bar attach. Disgusting. But
you already know what attach is going to do.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is Standy is very similar to me, like Neptune situation. I'm not saying Neptune is the best player in the world, but Neptune was playing like trash until Clay
playing worse than Pat.
Off the roster.
Playing worse than Pat would.
And then statistically, at the very least, he started to play better. Standy has not been good this entire year. Super inconsistent at Respawn. When last year he was praised as, a rookie MVP. What is it? A rookie of the year type caliber player. I think that team needs a environment change. I think they need they need some sort of change in general because they just look lackluster in everything but search and destroy. And I don't know what it is, but the organization and the coaching staff just seem afraid to make changes, or maybe they just don't think anyone out there is worth swapping. But like you said, if there's anything people have learned, because I have been known this shit. I've been through the challengers fucking jungle. I know how these, how good these players are. I played against them. I would lose to them. I would beat them. I'm a fucking talent scout.
6-time challenger champ. Let them know.
There needs 9-time, motherfucker.
9-time.
No, but seriously, there needs to be a change with that team, and they need to look to maybe this potential gunless Spart thing mix up might bring them a flex player, which I think they sorely need. And I said this on the reverse sweep, and it pains me to say it because I love this guy. Like, I think he's a good dude, but Priesta has been under fucking performing for the last 2 years.
They all need new teams, bro. They will all get better.
Yeah, I think Major Maniac, although maybe not the most star type player, I think he's been serviceable, and I think his S&D has been what's basically, for me at least, earned them an opportunity to potentially stay on the roster if they were to keep one of them. But I think Priesta has been the one that has had the most drastic fall off so far in terms of his stardom back on 100 Thieves and Black Ops, to now. And it sucks, but I think they need to replace him, and I think I think he could maybe be good on a different team. And I think people would probably still look at him because they know the type of player that he could be. But I think they need to make a change. And I think he's probably going to be the first one to go, if not Major Maniac.
My question
because
for
I
you
know
guys:
a lot of people also have issues with him.
Has any team in the CDL that made a change, even one, dating back to when they started, actually, barring when LAG got rid of the GOAT and they got a little worse in year one,
they
has
had
any
Crim?
team that they got me? I mean, they got rid of me.
Oh, I thought you said
and
GOAT.
they ended up 12th. But has any team in the CDL seriously that made a change not gotten better? I feel like every single team every year that's made at least one swap in some form got a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally dating
Or
back
at the
every
very least stayed the same, but like didn't get worse.
Yeah. Like, why
So-
not at this point? We've seen it. We got a
dating
track
all the way
record.
back, dating all the way back to MW, where OGLA
They got Chino, got a final.
got Chino out of all players, not because Chino was good, but they didn't need Chino. Like, Chino was not the role
They had
needed.
Dashy.
They still got better. All right. After
Did they
that,
drop? Did they drop Cap?
I think so.
I don't know.
Anyway,
They dropped.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Probably.
Draza and Hollow got on that team. They did really good too. Like, just every team that has ever made a change gets better. You're
Well,
right.
you know what the issue is, though? You know what the issue is? Not only logistically with contracts, but it's what you said, Chris. So many teams, when they're looking, right? When things aren't going well, sorry, some's my eye, and they're thinking about it. Like, maybe Minnesota's been thinking about team change. They only look for someone who is an obvious improvement individually. But they don't realize that not only is that damn near impossible, that isn't what you need. Like, we could use the Chino example dating back in MW. Even recently with Spart. Spart's a great player. I think he has a lot of potential. We need to see more of him. Like, he did just win an MVP. But is he a better player than Gunless in Vanguard? Like, it's close. If anything, I would say they're very equal. Or even say Gunless is a little bit better than Spart.
I think they're better at different things, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's my point is you don't need to necessarily make a move for this obvious upgrade. It can be a quote
lateral
unquote
skill move.
Lateral skill move if it changes the dynamic of the team.
Not everyone needs
the energy, the vibes. Like, not everyone needs a Simp, not everyone needs a Shotzi. Sometimes you just need to switch the environment up and have different scenery, and that's it. Because
teams look at improving wrong. People want to make a move and instantly be a winning team. People don't want to make a move and get slightly better. Like, it doesn't, and I get it. I understand, but at the same time, if you continue to trend downward by waiting too long to make a move or just not making one in fucking general, no one is going to want to play for your team. So you're gonna get it's gonna get worse and worse in terms of finding available players.
A great example is Ian, our EG team in World War II. Like you
blacked out that whole time. I don't
no,
remember that.
but we didn't work together. But like
Yeah.
you were obviously very capable of being on a contending team. Like it's like sometimes the players they're successful in their own rights and very highly skilled in their own rights, but they just don't work together,
Yeah.
right? Like that's just the nature of the beast. That's how it's always been. There's going to be team environments that don't succeed together, and sometimes you just need a facelift. Like just change some shit up, get a new environment. And I think teams that we can talk about, obviously Minnesota, they're one that kind of just sticks out like a sore thumb. LAT, theirs also could involve just some role swaps and maybe a move. Like, but they don't got to go out and recruit a Simp or an aBeZy. Legion did it. Look at Legion, right? Like they made a pretty big change, massively improved.
Yeah.
Look at Boston. Boston
hasn't made a change, but yeah.
No, but I'm saying Boston has a player that literally was placing top 30 million. Sorry, Cap. In challengers, hasn't had much experience, and he's one of the best players on the team. It could be very lucky.
But let's talk about teams that want to make changes, though. Like who else is there?
I'm saying they're an example of a team that basically
go out and get challenger players.
Take a fucking risk, because the worst thing that you can do is you stay the same, in my opinion.
And aside from Paris, these teams aren't going to release the players, right? Like let's say Priesta gets dropped, like he's still going to be on the bench. Like it's still worth trying it out. Like they're not going to release Priesta, but I think another example of this is the Subliners. I personally think they intended to make a 2-person change. They need to see it through, right? Like from environment standpoint, they got better in the online qualifiers. They played better, but that's just with one person. Imagine they do a 2-person change, which they wanted to do the whole time, which they had their sights on the whole time, and just try it out. I think, Neptune played a lot better in the qualifiers, but I still think there's room for them to make the change they want, because I still don't think they're playing the way that they want to play. I think if you look at them statistically, Neptune still is not that very fast of a player. He's super talented. He can find success elsewhere. Hey, maybe that's somewhere that Minnesota's looking at, right? They're wanting a sub. Maybe Neptune fills in for them. But I think from New York, like he's not necessarily the piece they need, and he doesn't really fit for them, in my personal opinion, because when you look at the stats, he's not playing at the pace that a lot of these other subs are playing at, and it might just be within this team, this New York team. Crim is, I think, slowed down a lot, but still having a lot more engagements than Neptune, which to me is a problem when looking at it on paper. But I think that's another piece that, hey, if New York go and pick up whoever, then hey, Neptune's then available. If Minnesota wants to move Priesta, Neptune might be a piece for them.
I agree.
There's a lot of things that can open up if teams just started to make changes.
Yeah, another team that we can talk about making changes and might potentially look to do so is Toronto. Toronto have a very
They're still gonna win it all.
But they have a very hard decision to make. They've been trending downward ever since the year started, and they're in a very weird position with Cammy and Insight, I think, being their players that haven't been performing up to standards. I think Insight had a decent event for their short period of playing at the event. But Cammy has not looked good. And I'm not saying that he necessarily should go, but he was a superstar level Cold War player, just like Standy. Maybe a different environment, a facelift, if you will
they got to make a team change, Chris,
back up to his personal standards. And I don't know where or how that'll happen, but they do have access to Hixie on their team, who just won the Challenger Championship. It's like I said, there's a lot of talent in Challengers, and hell, there's a lot of talent in EU Challengers. Props to those guys for showing out at the Challengers event. That you got to think they're probably looking at something. They have to be. They don't look comfortable at all. They don't look good. You got to think that there's players on there that are unhappy and they're going to be requesting some sort of a change.
Well, there's a month off. I would be surprised. Let's just do a quick rundown, because I agree with you, Chris. Toronto has to make a change. It just clearly doesn't work. You're 2-18, 2-20, whatever they are on their last X amount of hard points. You're not going to be a winning team. I also don't even know in this game if they can turn it around. But Toronto, in my opinion, needs to at least make a change. NYSL, LAT. Who else? Probably still
Rokkr.
Florida. Minnesota.
Yeah. Dude,
Like,
there's so many. Like,
it's tough because Florida got top 4, but I think they're in there with the rest of them.
dude, I said it. Them, not only them getting top 4, but them beating the Ravens was like, it sounds super shitty. And I know people aren't going to understand this in the comments, but this event to me was the worst possible thing that could happen to that Florida roster, because they're going to have confidence that they're better than they really are, right? Like where they're actually at. And that's going to delay, and if not completely stop, a potential change, because they're going to think in their head. Yeah, like it gives you that confidence, like, oh, we're good enough. Look, we got top 4. We beating some of the best teams. Blah blah blah. But in reality, I still see them as just middle of the pack, right? They don't have what it takes, and I think they could be, a big player in this market of getting someone that really improves their team. Because I think, like you said, like Skyz was playing insane. I think he is a really good player. They could easily improve in getting, just about anybody, just because of roles, which expands their map pool. But I don't know. We'll see, because obviously we don't know the logistics of every team involved, but we do all agree that, there need to be some changes. So hopefully, there's about a month of a month break here between April and May before we get back into matches, and hopefully those convos start, right? And some teams get on the phone and start figuring out what's possible, because I think this league is very competitive, but I think it could be even that much more competitive if some of these teams can make some moves, because there's some top dogs that are in the bottom right now, and they're 1, maybe 2 roster changes away from being a contender. So
yeah, definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if this month break that we have is gonna spark some conversation amongst teams, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of phone calls. I wouldn't be surprised come our next group stages that we have a couple of new teams with some new faces.
Oh, hold up, Nate Shots call me right now.
Yeah, to post a video, baby, not to play.
Like you were saying, man, at the very least, some of these teams need to seriously start gearing up their roster, even their sub, bench. Because from what I know, like for example, I think Rokkr? Yeah, Rokkr's sub is Looney.
Perfect example was Spart. They had Spart. Like even Seattle, Mac turns into Yak, and Classic is available to play. It's not Bevels or Ricky or Brian Saint. Looney, it doesn't matter.
They got to start hitting up these players and at least getting them on board for potential changes, even if they don't actually go ahead and fully make one, which I think they'd be stupid not to. But yeah, it's unacceptable that coaches are still fucking substitutes on teams. I'm sure Looney can come out and fry, but you get the point.
Yeah, something I want to ask you guys. Clay actually, throughout this weekend, tweeted there's 6 main ARs currently in the league that he's better than. He specifically said 6. He didn't name anybody.
Oh, wait, let's think.
So I'm gonna say the Paris, Tom Gravity. I'm gonna say Florida. I guess Skyz or Dave Patty. Probably Dave Patty. Skyz runs a flex.
Skyz isn't the main AR. I learned that the hard way, supposedly.
Even though he is a main AR. Anyway, so yeah, those 2.
Octane. I'm assuming he's saying Octane.
Yeah. He would probably say Octane.
Definitely not. Maybe he thought he's better in Slasher until this event.
He probably did.
Listen,
you think he's
either way
Crim in that maybe?
Probably
100%.
Either
100%
way,
he's a clicker.
Yeah,
either way, besides maybe like 1 player, 2 players, I think that's complete bullshit. And I say this because I fucking say this to Clay because he's my homie. But bro,
Lamar.
He's been playing. He's been getting fried. He was getting 360 World Star turned on while he was playing. No. That's not to say that he couldn't come back and fry, because we were just talking about the whole theme of the fucking episode is like new environments can just bring players to
our careers.
Their peak for yeah.
Well, look at our careers. Like, bro, you're only as good as like the environment you're in, right? Like, and the team. So like being a good player on a shit team does not always reflect. Like, you're not just going to be a standout sometimes. You could go to a mediocre team, but if things are clicking better, you could be a standout there.
Yeah. You see it at an extreme level. Like, I think if you take a decent player and put him on the best team in the game, he's going to play better than he does when he's playing with the worst team in the game. It's common fucking sense. And I think go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just to reiterate your point, the best example is literally what Pat said earlier. Our EG team in World War II. We were the absolute worst pro
We
team.
were all we were like 8th.
Okay.
That's last. Anyways.
You're not wrong, Chris.
Yeah, we were still beating Austin,
We
though.
were horrible, right? I get moved, Nameless gets dropped. He was the issue.
We had some role issues as well.
And you guys pick up 2 players, but you and App do your thing. You guys end up getting second at Seattle. You win champs. You know, it's a fluke. I end up going to TK. I win the playoffs before, then get second at champs. It's like we were almost a laughing stock of the league early on, you know, and it just goes to show you that sometimes that's all you need. To your point, Chris, is Clay can be the Clayster we all know. I think he's a little faded for that take. But the issue is, and we've talked about it, the main AR is just a hard role to actually get a job in. That's why you need to have an expansion. Because even, Chris, you said, what's his name? Scrappy. Scrappy was like the Don Juan in the Challengers event. And
well, that's the thing.
I don't even know if he'll get an opportunity, though. Because
he's not even a main AR. He's a flex.
But
I thought people were saying you ran main, but
let's say you're a CDL team. Are you taking this is obviously a faded take when you take it at surface level, but are you taking Scrappy or are you taking Clay? If you were choosing between the two, who are you picking? Because it's like, what are we going off of, right? Like, we know what Clay's capable of, right? Like a GOAT of Call of Duty, cemented, but then you have Scrappy, who's like insanely talented up and comer, who's proven himself every year. If you're a CDL team, what should you rolling the dice on? I say most CDL teams are going to lead the way of Scrappy.
It's just a typical, like, 18. Hard. It's the typical 18 and cracked. Like, we're trying to find the next simp. We're going to go for the young guy.
It's hard to justify. And I think Clay's in a bad spot, and it's going to really hurt his chances on getting on a team currently in the CDL.
And that's the problem.
Happens, totally different scenario, but
that's the problem with just being a veteran. Like, for example, like, I don't think, look at Classic, but he played fucking disgusting in the one series he played, right? For like another case where look at Zinni. If there was no expansion, Zinni was not going to be in the league, right? Zinni gets on a team, right? Surrounded with a good environment. I'm sure the coaching staff over there, Zed, Dens, great environment, cool guys. TJ Halley, one of his best friends. He is fucking frying.
Bro, there was rumored to be 11 teams. He just would have been out completely if it was 11 teams. One of the best ARs.
He's one of the best ARs this year.
That's what makes it hard, though, Chris, is what you said is, especially someone like Zinni, because we've seen where he's been considered really good. People didn't think he was so hot, but like Zin can compete. Like he's been great. He's been one of the best AR players, main AR players so far this year. And when we're talking about Clay's one of the greatest AR players of all time. It's like Clay's skill. It's not like his skill just disappeared. Yeah. So what do you bet on? Do you bet on the young gun or do you bet on someone who's proven himself?
Yeah.
It's tough. I feel bad
off of franchises. For Clay. I think we know what they do. Going off what franchises have done historically, I think we know what choice they're going to make.
Unfortunately for Clay, I don't think he gets on a team this year just because there's probably a lot of things that go into picking him up in general, just getting him off the New York Subliner roster.
Logistics behind that.
But even then, the same shit we're talking about with the young guns versus the veterans. I think he's in a very similar position as Zinni, where he's going to have to wait for some sort of expansion or rebuilding phase where he gets another opportunity to show his stuff.
If he had that opportunity, I think he excels in it for sure. If he had the same opportunity like Zinni has, like a fresh look, fresh team, fresh roster, I think he could really make that work.
Like he basically gets to pick his players. Essentially,
same thing with Zinni, right? Same thing with Zinni, same boat. I think
I'm gonna be honest. I think the one thing that we're gonna start seeing more of, and I really hope if there's some expansion or major roster shakeups, I'm not saying go out there and pick up every single challenger in the world, but I want to start seeing one vet, one Clayster, one Crimsix, one Slasher, one Lamar, right? And surround them with the younger talent, not necessarily challengers, but start surrounding yourself with not newer players, but
shit. Clay had that in BO4. Crim and Clay had that on Empire.
Yeah, but they've even then, Arcitys with the Tiny Terrors. You got Scump with fucking his boys. You got even Seattle, which we said blow it. Well, people were saying blow it up. I wasn't, but we'll see what kind of team we know what kind of team they can potentially be just because it's fucking Lamar, the core veteran, surrounded by 3 of the best challenger players throughout the last couple of years. I think that's the best environment that a lot of us could be in. That's where I thrive. I go into challengers and I surround myself with all the new kids on the block. Some of the kids that you're seeing now taking over on the main stage were my teammates in challengers. And I told people they're fucking phenomenal players. And I think that is the best environment for players like myself, for players like Clay, for players like Crim, for players like Methods, et cetera, et cetera.
I fully agree with you, Chris.
It's the best case scenario.
And I think that should happen. And the problem that we're facing is there's just not enough franchises. That's literally all it is. Like, if there was the same amount of franchises Overwatch had, we wouldn't have this problem, like, at all.
Yeah.
If there was an extra 12 fucking teams, like, this wouldn't be an issue at all. And I think there would be a lot of teams that would find success in that kind of method. But since we were talking about Zinni, I do want to say, like, me for Boston, I want to get your guys' take on this. To me, they're still like a team to really keep our eye on, because I feel like I haven't seen enough to justify how good they've been, like, placed. I think they're without a doubt top 6, like, no question to me, they're top 6. But I'm really struggling for them to really break into the upper echelon, and I think it's going to be a continuous thing that we keep talking about, how they just cannot beat the top dogs, even like the Londons of the world. Even though London's struggling a little bit, like FaZe, OpTic, London. Why do you think it is that they're doing so well against these bottom half teams, but struggle so much against the top dogs?
I think they have a higher floor. I mean, I think they play the game better than most teams. Like from a team standpoint, I just think individually they have players that are way too inconsistent. The only player that is consistent is Zin. And I mean, you look at,
he's been frying though.
Yeah, no,
Can he keep that up?
I mean, honestly, he probably can. Maybe he might fall off a little bit, but I think he will stay consistent. The issue is when we look at their bracket from Major 2 going into it, they beat the teams that they were better than. They beat LAG. I know LAG won the whole event, but going into the Major, they beat them. They beat Florida. Who else did they beat?
They lost. That was only 2 wins.
And they play FaZe, which we saw FaZe lose to LAG, and they had a close series for Seattle, and they got bodied. Yeah, Boston got bodied. I just, for some reason, they can't get over that hump, and I think it comes down to just the inconsistencies of the individual players and the fact that their control is horrible. But yeah,
their S&D was horrible this weekend too.
I would give them a top 5, maybe top 4 team in the game. It's just hard not to, Pat. But I agree with you. They've had the easiest 2 majors, bracket-wise. The easiest 2 majors. Their last qualifier was super easy. I think we're going to see a lot from them moving forward because they're going to have harder qualifiers for stage 3. And hopefully they won't have a free bracket to the top 3 again.
Like, one thing I will say, sorry, my bad to cut you off, Pat, but the one thing I will say is they've been the best average team in the game. It's like they're like FaZe's consistency, but in terms of just beating everybody underneath them.
No, it's not wrong though. This is very successful for them. Like now, this year has been very successful.
This is a very successful year for them. Do I think they're going to compete for championships this year? No. Do I eventually that's their goal? But like I was saying in the prior podcasts, I think this is a best case scenario for them because they're going to create a desirable environment for other players to come through in case they ever make changes. But I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they regress because like we're talking about, some teams might be making these facelifts. They'll probably stay the same the entire year unless there's some extremely lackluster results in the future. But I mean, like I said, I don't think they're in a position to even make changes that could improve them. Unless they just took more risk, but they already did take risk. And I think they're kind of just riding on their safe bets that they've made so far. And I do hope they improve. And I still think they're going to be a very good S&D team the entire year, but I think Cap and Nero have a lot to learn in terms of the discipline factor, because in a map and mode like Control, it's so fucking basic and easy to understand. All you have to do is have discipline to win it, because you're getting defense majority of the time anyways. And once you get those defenses, you just have to play textbook COD. You don't have to do anything out of the ordinary or extra like to win to win the map. And that seems to be their weakest link. While S&D is a very free form game mode where you can have these strategies and you can go rogue a little bit more and show off your individual play and individual situational awareness. And I think that's why they are very good at it, because they have very good, talented players at kind of making plays, but controls a lot more slow pace, a lot more discipline. And that's what they struggle at. So
which they struggled this weekend in search. Pretty bad. 3 and 4
but
on
they
Sunday.
they still managed to place pretty well. So that's like what I'm saying is they're not in a bad position. I just don't know if they're going to be able to compete for championships this year.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, that pretty much covers our major 2. Any new players to break into kind of our top three players in the game right now? I think it's still kind of the same.
I think Shotzi's number 1.
I think we had him there. Even he didn't move.
I think he's number 1, but Cellium is close. If not probably number 1, and they're just tied for first.
Yeah, they're back and forth.
The top 3 is probably in no order. What, Shotzi, Cell, Dashy still?
Yeah, Dashy did play pretty well.
I mean, what you're going to get from Dashy. Obviously, they didn't have the placement they wanted, but I think right now after the 2 majors, you can't really no one really.
I can't even, bro. Isn't it crazy that we're not even bringing up Simp or aBeZy for best player in the game conversation?
They both been really bad.
Yeah,
they both have been struggling.
Dude, they think about this. They've been, and it's crazy that we're saying bad just because their bad is like 0.9 average, but they've both been so bad for their ceiling, but FaZe is still making grand finals. That to me is the most impressive thing about the FaZe team, that their 2 superstars in the Tiny Terrors are struggling as much as they are, but FaZe is still managing to make it to the final and be that consistent team.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we've been talking about since day one. As soon as FaZe hits that switch, as soon as those 2 guys are able to really turn it on, then that's when they're going to be a problem. But I was going to say, if we see Kyler that we saw this weekend in some of these matches,
he was great in the finals too. He was
amazing in the finals, and he was amazing in some of their loser run. Like, if he can play consistently at that level, I think he might be etching back for that combo, which don't get me wrong, before Major 2, I did not have him there at all. He was my worst player on that team that needed to step it up the most. Same. And the way he played this weekend turned a lot of heads, especially
same with Asim, bro. If they keep up form, bro, I can only assume that Asim is playing good. Asim was one of their best players in the entire tournament.
He's been their superstar, to be honest.
He's been their best player.
The thing that I don't understand, I can't wrap my head around it, just talking about Simp and aBeZy, is like why they are performing as badly as they are, but also the FaZe team, like they made the finals, right? And realistically, the only one who's been consistent on that team is Cellium.
Yep.
Like consistently playing at a high level up to his standards. But even when you look at them, like they made their way to the finals through winners bracket. I get that, it's not necessarily an advantage. Bodied Boston. But we're talking about a LAG team that went 3-2 to Florida, 3-2 to Boston. Could have easily been out top 4. And then they go up against FaZe and they just absolutely blow them out of the water.
You know what it is?
I just don't understand how LAG can kind of look so mediocre going up to it, where it's just like, oh my God, they just keep clutching up these game 5s, to them making FaZe look like a top 12 team.
It's the game. And you want to know what's crazy? While I was still competing, beginning of the year, I was very vocal on Twitter with my feelings about the game. I was on the flanks multiple times, basically saying the game is fucking garbage, and the league and the publisher should be ashamed of making this fucking product. And I feel bad for everyone that has to complain.
It's getting late, guys. It's getting late. It was a late day for us on the reverse.
He don't mean that.
We started a little late. Game could definitely use some improvement, is what Chris is saying.
But basically, me and aBeZy had exchanged quite a couple words in terms of our thoughts with the title. And I don't think FaZe overall as a team, and aBeZy probably especially, are very happy with the game they're playing this year, and I think it's probably affecting his performance. I personally retired because I wasn't having fun anymore, which is
Passion
funny. It's
dried
like
up.
fucking passion dried up. The little insert Odell Beckham meme. But like part of that is because of the game. I just didn't like it. And I think aBeZy is probably not saying he's going to retire or anything, but I think he is probably just not happy with the game, and it's probably affecting his performance. I feel bad for him because
I mean,
I was saying
was
it.
just-
That boy's a millionaire. I don't feel bad for him if he wants to
Yeah.
retire. You know what I'm saying?
but I can't resonate fully with you. I mean, I think, especially Chris, where we started playing COD, I think you could have the same, thing with Halo. Like, you started so early on and you saw what the game was that you really enjoyed. And it changed so much that, like, you get to the point where you're like, you're not playing the same thing that you enjoyed so much for so long. And it just gets to the point where you're just not having fun anymore. And I think, Chris, that kind of summarizes your thoughts on it. And it's a tough pill to swallow. Just because, you never want to just, something that you dedicated your life to for so long to just run into that wall where you're just realizing, hey, it's just not fun for me anymore. But unless you guys have anything else, I got some
Go
YouTube
ahead, Pat.
comments that I
Go
want to
ahead,
pop
baby.
up for you guys. You guys good for that?
Yeah.
Lead us home.
Alrighty. We got Ricardo. He's asking, what was the moment that made you feel, damn, LAG could actually do this?
Mm,
For me, it was map 3, that control on
Yeah.
River 2.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree because they got bodied map 1, the close map 2, but it was, they obviously made it that far. They're not just going to get 5-0'd, even though, Pat thought they was. He was the only
Yeah,
person. But that Gavutu control, it wasn't like they just won it in a very lucky way. Like, they were pretty dominant, especially I thought on their defense. And that's what I was like, wow, they have everything going their way. They're feeling it.
They were
Now
gunning
all
him.
the pressure's on FaZe, yeah. So map 3 for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
What about you,
that's-
Chris?
I was definitely in the same boat. I was basically checked out in the control as I usually am. And then I was like, whoa, LAG's up 2-0. What the they can really do this shit. And then eventually, they
and they
ended up
did it,
winning.
Chris. And then
Yeah,
they did it.
exactly. Same boat.
All right. Well, our next question is coming from Leprechaun. I'm gonna answer this one for all of us because I think we all are on the same boat, and I'm gonna send this out. Leprechaun asked, and y'all can let me know if you disagree, but I don't think you
Okay.
will. Leprechaun asked, with how the major unfolded, perhaps there's no S tier teams at the moment. And this is the answer. There's OpTic and there's FaZe, and then there's everybody else. And there's no rankings with everybody else, but everybody else is in the same boat on the same level. And on any given day, they can beat each other. But OpTic and FaZe are going to be in the finals majority of the time, if not every event after this, except for Chance, which I got Ultra. But I think it is OpTic and FaZe at S tier, and then everybody else. And until
And we're being gracious, by
so
the way,
far,
because
what we said, though, we said OpTic and or FaZe was going to be in every major. It stayed true
Yep.
with FaZe making it. But
And I
Yeah,
know
I mean,
LAG,
you're right.
and I know LAG made the final and won the event, and that was a Cinderella story, which I don't see happening again. And if it happens again, we'll come back on here, we'll revisit this episode and be like, damn, we were faded. But I think that's the take that's going to stay true the whole year.
and real quick, I'm going to play the villain here because Pat didn't. I'm going to be gracious by putting OpTic in S tier because at the moment in the last
Oh, don't get me wrong,
episode,
FaZe is first.
in the last episode when
OpTic
we did our tier list, we put OpTic in S tier by themselves and FaZe at the top of A tier, and we're switching the roles. Now we got FaZe in S tier and OpTic at the top of A tier. And I'm being gracious because at the end of the day, they might not have won the tournament, but they made finals back to back. You ain't seeing fucking FaZe placing top 300.
Top six, but yeah.
Because OpTic may as well have if the, with the teams they lost to.
Yo, chat,
So-
that's that guy. Yo, that's
Yeah,
that's that guy.
which way do I got to go?
This way.
I'm
There
not
you go.
co-sign.
Yeah,
Yo, I
that's
don't.
that
Hey, I
guy.
think they're
Listen,
both
man,
on
I'm
the
just
same
bu-
tier. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
I'm just busting their balls, man.
But yeah,
I got
look.
love for everybody.
So far with what we've seen throughout the whole game, it's OpTic, FaZe, and it's everybody else. But listen, it's late. We recorded this late for you guys so we can get it out on Monday as always. We hope you had a blast watching Major 2. We definitely did, and we're glad we can pump these out. I think this is episode number 9. So yeah, they're gonna be here every Monday. If you don't get tired of us, because we're gonna keep coming back, even if you are tired. But remember, hey, we're still trying to pass Crim on the subscribers. We made a good jump last episode. We want to keep that up. So use the subscribe button as the fuck X button. And we'll see you next time on a reverse sweep.